Welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's Learning from Entrepreneurs event, hosted by the Australian Graduate School of Entrepreneurship, or AGSE. I really love coming to these events. I think for myself, being in the audience, I learn a lot, and it motivates me, or inspires me more like to think about developing my own entrepreneurial career. I haven't done that yet, but today I was reading about the age that entrepreneurs develop their first businesses, and whilst you might think that they're often quite young, Mark Zuckerberg was 20 for Facebook, but I found a lot of old people. So Jeff Bezos was about 30 when he launched Amazon. I'm a bit older than just that. But I found the founder of E-Trade was actually 54. So I'm not 54 yet, but that's getting closer. And I also saw that the founder of IBM many years ago, I think it was 1923, was about 67 when he merged the four companies that came together to become IBM. So there's still hope for me yet. But tonight we're here with Helen, and before we kick off, I'm going to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which Swinburne's campuses are on, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I want to recognise their elders, past, present, and emerging. I also wanted to say a few housekeeping things. If you could turn off your mobiles, if you could put them on silent. We've had a whole range of technical issues that you've seen tonight, so I'm sure mobile phones are probably ringing as well, but we had an issue with this camera, and it turns out that the power was plugged into the wrong point. So we got there after 15 minutes. We're a little bit late, but we will catch up. We've also got Q&A we're going to have after Helen does a quick presentation. I'll ask a series of questions, but we'll also open up to the audience to ask questions, so please think about your questions as we go through the session. We have got photos being taken tonight, so if you don't want your photo taken or used for any promotional material, please let Lauren know, who's standing at the bar, and she'll be sure to not photograph you. Okay, so for tonight's event, I would like to welcome Helen, who is the founder of Xolvit. Xolvit is a platform that is, a tool to engage and interact between or connect students and corporations that are looking to solve problems or challenges. And those problems or challenges are aligned with essentially socially responsible problems. I'll let Helen talk about the platform and some of the partners that are here just today. Apparently the AFL just signed up. So there's a whole range of really great corporations that are connecting with Xolvit. So to tell us more, I'd like to welcome Helen Baker, and you can join me in giving her a round of applause.
Thank you, Sean. Can you hear me all okay? Yes. I'd like to walk around a little bit, and due to the technical issues, unfortunately we don't have the screens showing where they would usually, so please bear with us in that regard. First of all, I would just like to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for coming here tonight, because I appreciate that you're all interested in entrepreneurship, I assume, and thank you for supporting me in my entrepreneurial journey, because this is how it all comes together. So lovely to have you. Thank you to Swinburne University of Technology as well for hosting this event, and Sean and Lauren and the team for hosting this wonderful inaugural event. So let me talk a little bit about myself first of all. Grab my clicker here. So this is me in a little snapshot. I'm currently the entrepreneur in residence at Wade Institute of Entrepreneurship at University of Melbourne. I am the founder and CEO of Xolvit, as Sean just mentioned. I serve on a number of boards, and I'm studying a Masters of Entrepreneurship as well whilst I'm doing all of this, which actually feeds in quite well to what I'm doing with Xolvit. And I am a proud mother of 3 girls at the same time. And a little fun fact about me, I am addicted to entrepreneurial podcasts. So any moment that I have, I am listening to podcasts. You can ask me about those later. But just to bring the mood down a little bit, I'm going to share my very, very personal story with you. And this story feeds into my purpose, my passion for creating Xolvit, and my contribution to the world and our next generation. Has anyone done a personal statement before when they've submitted an application to do a master's or a university course? Yeah, it's quite a humbling experience, isn't it, when you sit down and you actually have to reflect. And I think you only have a certain number of words that you can write your personal statement. And for me, it was a very interesting and humbling experience. I'm going to share it with you because whilst it's incredibly vulnerable for me to share this with you, it's important for you to understand how it all feeds into my passion, my purpose, and my journey as an entrepreneur, and why I created Xolvit. So I am going to bring the mood down a little bit, and there may be some tears here. So this is a picture of my adoptive father and me when I was about 2 years old. I was adopted from the Philippines into an Australian family when I was 13 months old. My mother was dying at the time of giving me up for adoption, and my father couldn't afford to keep me. I was one of 9 children, and 2 of my siblings had already passed away from malnutrition. I grew up in a rural farming community in the 70s, shortly after the White Australia policy had been abolished. And from a very young age, I faced severe racism. I was the only Asian in my school. I was spat on in the street and told to go back to where I came from. My parents were also ostracised for adopting a baby with different coloured skin from another country, because who in their right mind at that time would do such a thing? In addition to racial abuse, my adoptive mother was a depressed alcoholic. So I was conditioned to abusive behaviour from such a young age that I guess it just became my norm to come home every day after being abused by the kids at school, to then face abuse from my alcoholic mother, who was still in her pyjamas and playing mahjong on the computer with a glass of wine in hand. In such adversity, I have learned to be resourceful in so many ways I cannot describe. I've learned to be resilient. I think ahead. I'm visionary, but I also stay in the weeds when required. I've learned to work hard to achieve things, and I jump at every opportunity that comes my way. Sometimes to my detriment, but I mostly land on my feet. I've demonstrated hard work and achievement in my corporate career. I currently sit on a number of boards. My most recent corporate position was Lead Client Service Director at Deloitte, and I have successfully built, owned and operated a business for 10 plus years. My tech startup company is less than 1 year old, and I have achieved considerable success in a short space of time. I'm a single mother raising 3 children. My motivation for wanting to complete a Masters of Entrepreneurship is threefold. Firstly, I'm entrepreneurial. I believe the skills of entrepreneurship go hand in hand with survival. Throughout my corporate career and through experiencing adversity, I've learned to problem solve, ideate, take risks and form strategy. I'm resilient, and most importantly, I have grit and determination. Secondly, I see a Masters of Entrepreneurship as a pathway to achieving one of my life goals of being a Professor of Entrepreneurship. And finally, I am deeply passionate about helping our future generation create opportunities for themselves, as I have done for myself. I believe that by learning the theory and applying my practical knowledge, I will make a huge contribution to the lives of many people. So that was my personal statement when I was applying for my Masters of Entrepreneurship. Very vulnerable, as as you can gather, and I'll pick the mood up a little bit more. So moving forward, this all feeds into very much my journey and why I created Xolvit. But today what I'd like to do is actually take you through one of the skills that I believe is, in my opinion, one of the most important skills of entrepreneurship. And I had a few of you reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I've got some questions for you. What are you going to be talking about? And visualization is one of the skills that I believe every entrepreneur, every successful entrepreneur has, and it can be learned. So I'm going to ask you the question, do you have a vision if you're an entrepreneur? And even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you end up in life just going around in circles because you don't have a vision, I think it's important to at least understand how to go through the art of visualization so you're not going through those circles. And I love this quote. I was actually inspired by Helen Keller growing up. Does everyone know Helen Keller? Yeah, so the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. And I was incredibly inspired by her work, and I also loved the fact that her name was Helen too, because I didn't know any other Helens. So what is visualization? I have been fortunate to know a neuroscientist who's based over in the US, Dr. Mike Tranter, who has passed on some material for me to reference tonight. So I'm going to talk about visualization and how it applies to entrepreneurship. So the simple definition of visualization is the creation of a mental image. But what that really means in terms of entrepreneurship is mental preparation. So it's having an image in your mind and then preparing for what lies ahead in the future. This is a really fascinating image to me of the brain scan, where one of the key concepts of visualization is that the brain experiences mental imagery in a similar way to real life. So you can actually visualize something and your brain thinks it's realistic. It's actually happening in real life, which I think is fascinating. These are the three features of visualization. Does anyone use visualization? Yeah, it's so helpful. I've used it since I was a child. I think I've just constantly visualised what my future would look like, what I'd be doing next. Even when I'm cleaning the kitchen, I visualise a clean kitchen, everything I can apply it to in life. But visualise, make it real, and repetition. So this is how it can really be learned. And there's lots of data behind this and studies around how it's applied to sport, to musical performance, to problem solving. So focusing on the outcomes. So if you're running a marathon, you visualise what the end of the race would look like. For example, when you're doing a task, you visualise what the end would look like. Make it real, add emotion to it. How does it feel when you get to the finish line? Are you feeling excited, overwhelmed, exhausted? And repetition, so really repeating it over in your mind again and again and again. And this is so important for the entrepreneurial journey, even when it comes to being rejected. You get rejected as an entrepreneur over and over and over and over again. So I cannot stress the importance of visualization and how it helps you to overcome rejection. This is me. I ran a marathon in China. I ran the Great Wall of China Marathon. And I used visualization to help me through that process. So even with visualization, it's important to visualize the positive as well as the negative of the challenges, the setbacks that you may face. And this is how it all feeds into entrepreneurship. I know that was a really short take on visualization, but it's really important to understand and use it. This is my vision board at home. So I have a vision board that I look at every day. It changes all the time, but it essentially outlines my vision. And I always go by 5 years. For some reason, it's 5 years for me. In 5 years, there are 1,825 days. And in my calendar, I count them off in terms of where my journey is. That number there that is circled, 5,127, is my inspiration. It's the number of times that Dyson, I don't know if you've heard of Dyson's story, but so Dyson created obviously lots of things, but well known for the vacuum, and he had 5,125 prototypes before he actually got the thing up and running. And 10 to the 9 is a billion, and that's how many students and people around the world that I want to impact. So it's important to have a vision board, I believe, to help bring your vision to life. And I'm not going to read that, but this is me teaching Xolvit in class. Xolvit was just an idea in my head, and I'll talk about it in more detail. But it was just an idea in my head. And I imagined, and I use imagine all the time, the word imagine, imagine, imagine. My children use it all the time, pretend and imagine, pretend, imagine. But I imagined teaching Xolvit in class. I imagined lecturers standing up and saying, instead of a Harvard business case study today, we're going to jump on the Xolvit platform and we're going to look at some of the problems that real companies are facing in relation to challenges, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But there's me in class, and we had 250 students at RMIT who are currently working on Xolvit and some of the challenges. So someone asked me before, Sid asked me before about what was your aha moment. This was one of my aha moments when my actual idea has really come to life. Let me talk about Xolvit. I'm just wondering how much time I have to talk. Xolvit is a crowdsourcing platform for student innovation, helping companies to solve social problems. The future of work is Gen Z. It's predicted that by 2030, 58% of the global workforce is going to be Gen Z, and companies are currently ill-prepared. So in entrepreneurship, we always talk about what is the problem that you are trying to solve. And there are several problems that I'm trying to solve in relation to Gen Z and students. Number one is that graduate renege rates are currently at an all-time high, predicted to be 25%, which is huge. So graduates are reneging on offers that companies are putting out to them, and it's costing companies a lot of money, 2.6 million in graduate recruitment resources, which is a lot per year. Additionally, Gen Z will leave if they're not values aligned with the company. And also, Gen Z want innovative technology. I'm sure we have some Gen Z in the room here, and it's predicted Gen Z will leave or not interested in companies that are not innovative at all with their technology, particularly their recruitment resources. So the solution is Xolvit. I created Xolvit, which is an app. Essentially, this is what it looks like. It's changed a lot since then, lots of iterations. But essentially, it's an online platform connecting students with employers to create career opportunities and solve real-world problems. And the way that it works is that companies create challenges on the app that are aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And then students upload their ideas to the app to win the opportunity then to ideate with the companies and build out their ideas with the companies. Our AI assesses the ideas and then provides a short list of the ideas to the companies. And then companies also offer incentives such as work experiences and a work integrated learning experience and internships and other incentives for the students to solve their problems. So the value for company is that they get to access innovative thinking, social impact. They get to demonstrate that by aligning their challenges with real-world problems that they're facing. And it's also an opportunity for them to attract talent in an innovative way. For students, it's about professional credibility. It's doing something different. It's doing something completely different other than, applying for a position that they ordinarily would via paper application, by email. And it's also helping to demonstrate their employability skills. So skills that companies are currently looking for, the top 3, which are problem solving, presentation skills, communication, teamwork skills, and analytical thinking. And also they get to develop a community with other Xolvers on the platform as well. So the way that it works as well is that the universities supply the students for the platform, the companies provide the challenges, and then obviously the students are the users. I won't go into too much detail there. These are some of our partners on the platform, and as Sean just mentioned before, we have the AFL who've just come on as well. And you can see that obviously some of these partners are very well known and they're creating some really interesting challenges. This is my wonderful team. We've got Erica here tonight, our marketing manager. And that was my board of advisors. And it's really important, and I think we'll talk about this in more detail, I'm sure, to surround yourself with an incredible bunch of supportive people who have different expertise that you don't. And I really love this quote this is on my vision board, which is, be stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the details. So for some reason it's come up really funnily there, but if you want to download the app, that's where you can find it. And that's me. So thank you.
Thanks, Helen. This is a great personal story and fantastic idea, I think, bringing an idea to life. I think we'll be a little bit flexible with the Q&A. I might, if you've got a question, throw up your hand. I've got a few questions that I'll run through, but we'll just interact between myself and the audience. I think for me, I've often thought about if I've had ideas and thought about whether I should take a leap and kind of try and bring them to fruition. Could you talk to me about the early stages and kind of what it took for you to kind of take that leap?
Yes, so what it took to take that leap? Not much, because I take leaps all the time. I have my whole life. But in terms of if you're meaning moving from corporate world to a startup, which is a question that I often receive, it comes down to your purpose. And one of the books that I would highly recommend anyone read is The Art of Impossible, I think, by Stephen Kotler. I think that's the name of it. He actually goes through trying to understand an exercise in the book where you're trying to understand your purpose and finding your purpose. So for me, it wasn't difficult to finally make that step, knowing what my purpose was. And I always just wanted to give back to young people. So just set out on a mission to create that opportunity for myself again. So I left Deloitte a few years ago and quit and just went all in on my entrepreneurial journey.
Yes, we have a question.
Hi, thanks, Helen. I just wanted to know how many iterations did you have before it actually happened? Failures, challenges, blah, blah, blah. But how many times did you have to think, no, I'm not going to, I'll go back to corporate, I have to look for a job, finances are low?
Every day. Every day I think that. It's a challenge being an entrepreneur, it really is. You are taking a lot of risk on board for sure. It took a long time. Well, first of all, when I left Deloitte, I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of squirreled money to be able to go into that. But I also went to an investor and I said, this is my idea, will you back me? And they backed me straight away. So I knew I had some leeway. But there's extreme uncertainty that goes with that after time, and you have to. That's why entrepreneurs just do everything really quickly as much as possible so they're not burning up their cash. But every day I struggle with that too, because that's one of my biggest challenges is funding. So in order to answer your original question around how long did it take, lots of time and effort to actually get there. But so I actually built the MVP myself, and this is where resourcefulness comes into the journey of entrepreneurship as well. I went out there to developers and asked how much is it going to cost to build this. So I literally created all of the wireframes myself and took it to a developer and said, this is what I want it to look like. And they came back and I had quotes from 50,000 to 250,000 to 500,000 with maintenance included over a certain number of time. And I thought, I can't possibly afford that. So I thought, stuff that, I'm going to go and build it myself. So I taught myself how to low code, did all my research, went out there and built the MVP. And in the early days, I pitched it to Microsoft, was one of my first clients. And the CTO of Microsoft said, I love this, we want to be on board, let's go. Then I pitched it to IBM, then I pitched it to Village, then I pitched it to the Tech Council of Australia, so more and more companies. And there's that, in marketing you have that diffusion of innovation theory where, what's his name, Everett, you should know it, being a marketing professor, where you've got that curve of the, the bell curve, and the innovators came on board first and foremost, so they really grabbed it straight away, and then you create that sense of demand, and I want to be in on it too. But it's not just that, it was the value proposition that they could see in the platform.
So very quickly, did it help that you had worked in corporate with Deloitte and others that gave you that kind of wider experience to then do this, and the confidence and courage? Or do you think you should have done it, 15 years ago without that kind of experience?
Yeah, really good question. Yes, I believe that helped. Absolutely. Having that experience, having that corporate experience, and also having the network really helped. I couldn't have done it 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because the people who are supporting me now are extremely experienced, well-connected themselves, and I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to do it back then. There's a lot that I've learned and gained experience in my corporate world journey that has helped me along the way.
There's another question.
Yeah. Great presentation. Thank you. Love your story. It's an interesting question, given that we're sitting in the environment of Swinburne. Do you think that programs like yours will make universities irrelevant? Because we know that micro-credentialing is becoming more and more popular. 3-year, 4-year degrees are already outdated by the time you finish them. You're already working with industry and solving industry problems. So people who are younger are getting more involved with industry directly. So do you think that in some ways the world is heading towards an environment where long-term degrees, long-term qualifications are going to become less important, and solutions like yours would be far more important from an industry point of view? And the second part of that is, with your partnership with Microsoft, is there an element of a micro-credentialing that someone can get from your platform? Because at the end of the day, certifications and recognition of the work that they've done would hold value in a career's journey for the individual.
Yes. So in terms of your first question around, is a platform like mine going to replace education, or the degree essentially is what you're alluding to there. And I've thought about this for sure, and particularly having children myself, and I see that I really think that educational institutions need to get themselves in order in terms of really I don't want to be too controversial here, but I mean, the reason that I created Xolvit was to revolutionise education. It was really to give the students an innovative way to connect with companies in a way that they wouldn't, and create opportunities that are not traditional ways of, for them to go down their career path. So I think there's a place for education for sure. I still believe in educational institutions. I think this is more of a fast-track way, I think, for students to develop their skills and to show companies how motivated they are to do something extra outside their degree. I know that's not too detailed, but and your other question around industry and Microsoft, yes, there's opportunity there in terms of micro-credential for sure. That's something that we're looking into right now, because there's definitely an opportunity there. And I know that you're well connected, so maybe we can partner and talk about that in more detail.
We will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a few questions here, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned that some of your earliest customers were Microsoft. What is the process like of getting, for instance, a CTO of Microsoft in a sales call in the early stages of that funnel when you're a startup?
Yeah, so I actually didn't even know that the CTO was going to be on that call. I had reached out to a friend of a friend who worked at Microsoft, and he said, sure, I'll get some people on a call and we'll have a chat about it. And there were 10 or so people on that call, and the CTO just happened to be there. So I didn't know, I didn't actually reach out to him directly. It just so happened, and he absolutely loved it. He's actually now on my advisory board, and he's moved into the lead AI role for Microsoft. So I was just very fortunate. You know how they talk about, is it chance? Is a lot of the entrepreneurial journey chance versus skill versus so many other things, but I think that was just one of those chance moments as well. But it doesn't matter who is on the other end of the phone for me. When you are really, when you know what your purpose is, it doesn't become a sales call. It's really just you telling the story and what you've created. It's really interesting how it differs so much from actual sales.
Really inspired by your story. I'm curious to know that I can say you've got a really good advisory board, a lot of good leaders up there to advise you. Can you share some experience on how you have curated talents or leaders to be on your advisory board?
So I reached out to them directly. And how I've curated them is really based on skills and knowledge. And it's the same with any sort of corporate board. You often have people on the board who can bring a range of skills and knowledge and experience to the board to help drive the strategy. So the people that I have are a combination of educators, students. I needed both sides of the platform there, as well as finance, strategy. I've got a strategy professor on the board, technical people and investors and entrepreneurs. So a real combination of those people who can help drive the strategy from strong experience.
Aside from visualization, can you share any specific habits or traits that contributed to your success mindset?
Did everyone hear that? So other traits, well, I think I have such resilience. It's ridiculous. And I've been rejected time and time again, and you just have to pick yourself up over and over and over again, and that is really important in entrepreneurship. As well as discipline. I'm incredibly disciplined with what I do. I'm a creature of routine as well. So first thing in the morning, I get up very early. I'm a morning person as well. I listen to my podcast first thing and often go for a run before my children are awake, come home, and then my day starts. I'll do some work as well. So discipline is one of those. But in terms of innate, I think traits, certainly resilience, as well as just sheer determination to really achieve my goals.
So just to add to that too, how did you manage self-sabotage on your entrepreneurial journey?
Self-sabotage. Yeah, you do end up self-sabotaging a lot. I'm just trying to think of a particular. Can you give me an example of what you're thinking of in terms of self-sabotage?
I guess it's just experiencing limiting beliefs, especially if you mentioned in your personal statement you did encounter racism, and I guess that also taps into like self-doubt. Am I enough to tap into this industry? Am I enough to be an entrepreneur? How did you manage that? And also that transition from being an employee to a entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's a big risk. I think the biggest thing for me is really self-belief. And I think that also stems from failing several times, but then coming back from failure, you start to believe in yourself much more. So the more you put yourself out there, the more you're out of your comfort zone, you realise, I can actually do this. It's that, the Carol Dweck's mindset, growth mindset of actually doing something, then achieving it and realising I can do it. So the more I put myself out there, the more I took myself out of my comfort zone, falling, getting back up, falling, getting back up again consistently, just really gave me that self-confidence that I can do whatever I choose to do. So it's just getting over that fear of failure. And in terms of self-sabotage, we all deal with this, I'm sure, is that imposter syndrome, particularly for women. Apparently it's very common. But I like to think that I'm also leading by example for my children and for others as well. And I think when you, instead of having that mindset of I can't do something, it's really about the intention of doing it rather than not being able to do it itself. So it's who you're doing it for as well. But yes, that imposter syndrome is often there that I have to beat down with a stick because you just have to believe in what you're doing and what you're creating is for a greater good, essentially.
Out of the three things, which is validation, product development, and investment, what order did you choose those in and why, and what would you advise for new entrepreneurs?
Validation, development,
And investment.
and investment. Validation was very much first in the journey because it's all good and well having an idea, but without the validation, and this is, I was speaking to a student this morning, just earlier, about validating your idea. So I was fortunate enough to be part of a syndicate program at Melbourne Business School, and we had 8 exec MBA students work on Xolvit for 3 months as part of their project for their MBA. And what they did was they surveyed 170 students, they surveyed corporates, and they came up with an incredible strategy and report to validate the idea of Xolvit itself. That was just when it was an idea in my head. And different ways, different options of executing on that idea. So validation was first. And without validation, I don't think an idea is just an idea. Second, in terms of development, that came next. And then you actually have something to show investors. And then investment came next.
Just on that note, when you said you did the MVP yourself, was it just a prototype or was it working?
No, it's a working MVP. So I literally, that meeting with Microsoft, for example, I had it up on my screen and I was sharing my screen and showing them through every part of that app that I had built myself.
And did it require more development or you still?
Oh yeah, and still developing too. Yes, so lots more. Yeah.
I mean, a couple of questions over here. Yes.
Helen, fantastic presentation. We've communicated digitally. Mule, my name is.
Lovely to meet you.
And I look forward to your guest presentation in the venture planning unit, which you've already accepted.
Great, yeah.
Let me ask you a question, which often, entrepreneurs born or they are taught.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like you believe in both camps. How did you develop your entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, I get asked this question all the time. I believe that entrepreneurial skills can be taught. The skills can be taught. The mindset is, I think, something that comes from within. But together, incredibly powerful. I'm not sure that you're born with as an entrepreneur. I think you're either born. Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm still grappling with that myself. I really am.
You're a master's degree, so.
Well, I don't know that there's that much research on it either. I mean, you can teach the skills, definitely teach the skills, but you really have to have the drive to execute on those skills, and that's why I encourage everyone to find their purpose in life, because once you've found your purpose and once you know what it is that you are really passionate about, that will help to develop those entrepreneurial skills.
One of the best books I've read is by Angela Duckworth called Grit.
Yeah.
Grit.
Yeah.
And I think you have that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's another question, yes.
Yes, please. My name's Sophie. I'm here with the Swinburne Entrepreneurship Club. Can I just say, you have an incredible drive to succeed. I admire that so much.
Thank you, Sophie.
In terms of my actual question, how did you manage the transition between corporate and entrepreneurship, specifically in the sense of going from, say, an external motivation to have specific deliverables to working for yourself and doing things for yourself, being accountable for yourself?
Yeah, it's I prior to Deloitte, I actually had my own business. Very good question. So I had managed teams before, and but the actual transition it's not easy. And in fact, I remember distinctly in my interview at Deloitte, one of the partners said to me, "I don't know why you're here." You could be doing anything. I honestly don't know why you're here. And I replied with, I want to learn in a structured way. And I knew that Deloitte were really strong on innovation and really strong on ideation, and I often found myself, like everyone in Deloitte in my team always asked, "Where's Helen? Where's Helen?" And I'd disappear onto different floors all the time to expose myself to the innovators in Deloitte. So often you'd find me in these innovation hubs and with the propeller heads of Deloitte, who are all creating things. But it was to answer your question, very difficult. Early on, because it's really lonely as an entrepreneur. When you're creating something, people think you're crazy for starters. They really do think you're nuts. Why would you quit your really good job and having lots of money to completely having next to nothing, now living off the smell of an oily rag. But the transition was difficult because it was lonely for me. And it was difficult because I didn't have the resources that I had at Deloitte, for example, where you could go to your analytics team and say, hey, can you do this for me? Or having an assistant to help you with things and just general administration. But that's also the fun of entrepreneurship, is you end up doing everything yourself. So you often find you are everything: marketing, accounting, finance, sales, tech, everything. So I think I'm extremely adaptable, and that's probably a skill that a lot of entrepreneurs have too. So I can take on lots, but then I'm very mindful of, as my team know, Erica, I am spread very thinly, which is a trap as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Spread very thinly, and listening to what you were saying, the whole question of balance, especially now as you become more in demand, and how do you balance everything? What is it? Is it a constant struggle? Is it some techniques that you use?
As I said before, a very good question, and I do get asked this a lot around balance. I'm still learning about that too. I work a lot. I have routine, so I do like routine. So my alarm typically will go off at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I get up, and I'll just take you a day in the life of me. I get up and I go for, I listen to my podcast, so I get motivated for the day. Then I go for a run. Then I come back, I'll do a little bit of work, get the kids ready for school. If I haven't made their lunches before, then the night before, then I'll make their lunches, get them off to school, head into Wage, work. That's where we're based at the moment with my team. Come home, look after the kids, do the nightly, do a bit of work in between. Like you in the early days, I had my laptop next to me while the kids were in the bath. So don't hold that against me. But the great thing is, my children see how passionate I am about my work, and they see me happy, not coming back from Deloitte and that was exhausting. They see me really enjoying what I do. In fact, every little win I share with my children. My 17-year-old is looking after my kids tonight as we speak. And whenever there's a win, she'll go out there and she celebrates with me, and she'll bring home flowers or something. And it's a constant knowledge of knowing that you're doing something that is really meaningful. I know that doesn't help with the balance thing. I'm still working on the balance thing, but routine definitely helps. Structure helps, and making sure that you say no to a lot of things, which I'm very bad at, but I'm learning as I go to say no to things that are not in line with your purpose.
I think we've got time for a few more questions, I think.
I want to pick up on that, your comments about the passion. I think that's fantastic, that as a role model to your children, about having that passion and that drive for what you do. I think that's incredibly powerful for your children. And on the point of passion, I think often there's a conversation around startups, entrepreneurs, around you build this thing with an exit strategy in mind. That, without personal experience or knowledge, that might be a very Silicon Valley approach to things, but nonetheless, sometimes you read it, you hear about that quite a lot. From the get-go, always think of an exit strategy, always have your plan to get out and build it accordingly. But you talk about yours with about the passion that you have and that connection you have for what you do. So I asked that question to you. Is an exit strategy even relevant for you? And what do you say to the comments about building a startup with an exit strategy at the very get-go?
Yeah, really good question. And every VC, every investor wants to hear an exit strategy for their 10x return. And I think if it's advantageous for the purpose, for my purpose, for others, then there's the potential of an exit strategy. But the exit strategy would mean it would have to benefit the cause in some way. So whether that's to help scale globally, to help raise more awareness for students. I think that's the only way that I would have an exit strategy in mind. I have thought about it, of course. So there are some potential companies out there that would be a good fit for Xolvit in order to help grow. But it would have to be growth for a really good reason to help students.
Hello, I'm a graduate from Swinburne. Thank you for letting me know your inspirational story. So I do have 3 questions for you, but I will ask. I will not list 3 of them. So the first question is, I saw your team in the board advisory. My question is, how do you network with people? Like before building the company, you already have like the purpose in your mind that I'm looking for someone with this trait, that trait, or just genuinely want to connect with people. But the thing is, I feel like sometimes people, when they network, they're really looking for the benefits rather than the actual connection. So sometimes going to the professional networking event, I feel like it helps to connect with people. So could you share with everyone and me how do you network professionally with people without the fear?
How do you network with people? That's a really good question too. I am like a bull with a red rag on that. So I am known as the queen of follow-ups. So when people will present an opportunity to me, I will always follow it up. I'd like to think I always follow it up. So when you're out at a networking event, for example, and someone offers kindly, we should meet up, or we should catch up. Oh, let's scan our LinkedIn details, for example. You follow through with that. You take them up on their offer because people generally, they really want to help. So you need to take every little bit that comes your way. You snap that up. You follow up with that because you never know. It's not necessarily the person that you met, but you don't know who's in their network as well. So we might meet tonight and you might have some incredible people around you that would be extremely helpful for the Xolvit journey, for example. So don't necessarily always be thinking about the person that you're meeting, but think about who they have in their network that can help you as well. And never be afraid to ask that question of, do you know someone who knows someone who might know someone? And I just find in this universe, things just come back to you. It's really bizarre how the energy works like that. You put yourself out there and things come back, but you need to follow up on lots of those conversations.
So you deliberately go to the professional networking events?
Where I can. Yeah, I put myself out there. Not so much these days, it's just more on LinkedIn is a really great, their algorithms are incredible. The people who come up on my LinkedIn that I connect with, just connect. I get 100 LinkedIn. I think that's the limit that I'm allowed to connect with per week, but I connect with everyone. I make sure that I'm right at that 100 every week, trying to build my network. And LinkedIn is a really, really good resource for those people who aren't on LinkedIn, but use LinkedIn for sure.
My second question is about the accumulation of experience. So before you were in the corporate jobs, and now you're an entrepreneur. So now you're looking back through your corporate jobs, what skills or what experience contribute to the entrepreneurial journey now?
the skills, similar to what I was talking about before, the grit, determination. But in terms of the corporate experience that I've learned, sales is a really big part of entrepreneurship. And if you don't have the ability to pick up the phone and speak with someone, or hand out a business card and actually ask someone to help you, then it's not going to be helpful for you as an entrepreneur. So I think scales, I just heard music. So sales is a really big skill to have and to help with your entrepreneurial journey, for sure. I would say that was one of the big ones.
And that question is about the awareness. So you shared the story that you was adopted to Australia, and you have a mother who is public, and you live in the environment where people are racist. So from when you was a child, how do you build awareness that you need to visualize your life and the discipline, like pick up the good habits how you have that awareness?
That's a really good question too. So this is where adversity comes into it, because I think when you've faced severe trauma or difficulties in life, you often find ways of overcoming those difficulties and those challenges. So having awareness for what I wanted to get away from, I think that's what really drove me to do things that were out of the ordinary, I think, as well. So I was always to try and get away from that environment, trying to figure out ways of how I could escape it, how I could run away from those types of environments. So I was working on weekends. From a very young age, I had lots of different jobs to help me to earn the money to do things that would help contribute to what I wanted long term. So a lot of it was, I think, by virtue of just not wanting to be in the situation that I was in, and having the awareness of knowing this is not what I want long term.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Let's take one more question. Two more.
Would you say you've had an obsession with success, and throughout your journey of life, have you ever felt that you were better than your peers?
That's a really good question. So, an obsession with success. I'm very competitive, even at board games. So I think that's an innate thing in me too. I've always been incredibly competitive, and I do strive to achieve a lot. And in terms of my peers, when I was younger, yeah, sure. I wanted to be better than them. This feeds into my vulnerability as well, of how, what my identity was growing up. There was a part of me that just wanted to fit in, and there was also a part of me, we were talking about this earlier, about how you have different sides to yourself. So there was an inside part of me that wanted to come out, and yeah, so I was incredibly competitive, and I wanted to fit in at the same time, but then I also wanted to do my own thing and just prove everyone wrong. Yeah, and I think that helps to drive as well, when you just want to prove everyone that you're not. You're not this. You have an identity when you've been in my situation. You wanted to prove people that you're different.
When do you know that it's the best time to switch off your competitive side and actually open up your mind to learning from other people?
Wow, good question there. switch off your competitive side. I think that's always on. It's really hard for me to turn that off. I mean, even when I'm just running does anyone do the park run here? Even when I'm just running the park run, I'm doing a 5K run. Yeah, and I just go out at the gates really early, just trying to, anyway. Very good question. How turn it off. Now I'm starting to, early on in the journey of being an entrepreneur, you have no idea what you're doing. You really don't. You're going for it. You're saying yes to everything. Everything's a shiny new toy. What's this? What's that? I jump at every opportunity. And you just have to pull yourself back and then realize, hang on, I need to learn from people. I need to learn from people who have done this themselves. So I've surrounded myself with other entrepreneurs as well who can teach me because I know that I've still got a lot of learning to do. A lot of learning to do about myself and about the entrepreneurial journey too. But it's really hard to hold back that competitive side in me. I don't know that that's a good thing or not. It's held me in good stead in the past and continues to do so sometimes. But I'm trying to teach that to my girls now as we play board games all the time. And boy, oh boy. Good question though.
Final question.
Hi Helen, thank you very much for your talk, very inspiring. I wanted to ask you, in that stage between having the idea and getting to validation, or perhaps a little bit after, when you're shaping a little bit more the idea, did you recur to human-centered design thinking methods? I hear you with the Melbourne Business School, and perhaps they did that kind of work, I'm not sure. But yes, did you recur to that kind of thinking, and how did it serve you?
Yes, definitely. Design thinking was certainly, we did a lot of design thinking at Deloitte, and I actually think my experience at Deloitte has helped me a lot in terms of strategy, design thinking, ideation, innovation. We did a lot of innovation workshops, so certainly those processes that I learned at Deloitte have helped me a lot in my entrepreneurial journey and Xolvit specifically. And definitely in terms of those processes, for sure.
Yeah, perhaps the of empathy and creativity, those kinds of mindsets, and we're talking about mindsets as something for the entrepreneur, these mindsets of creativity and empathy that you need to acquire to really hear the needs of those people that you're going to be serving and then get creative about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Empathy for sure. And in fact, the way that I can empathise with those students who are coming onto the platform is that a lot of them are motivated to connect with these companies because they haven't had the opportunity that some privileged students, for example, have. And I don't know if you saw, there's a recent study that Monash put out last year around, unfortunately, that racism is still incredibly rife in Australia for international students particularly. And their struggles with finding jobs and a lot of their CVs that are being put to the bottom of the pile just because they have a foreign sounding name. So I can empathise with those students who are really struggling to find opportunities, and this is a way to help those students demonstrate their skills and their capability and their potential in an innovative way that is not handing a CV to a company and then having it be put at the bottom of the pile. So it's a free-for-all. and empathising in that way. But certainly we've done a lot of customer discovery too, around empathy and understanding what their needs are.
We've got some time for food and drinks, and we've got a sort of half an hour to do that. So I think Helen's going to stick around and we'll take some more questions as well. So in the interest of time, I know we're about 20 minutes over. I'll wrap up the main Q&A part and join me in thanking Helen for her presentation today and a very, very personal story. Just a couple of observations. One, I need to set my alarm clock earlier. Two, with 4 children, one being a startup, how do you find time for yourself? That's for you to ponder. Please do. And fourth, knowing that you want to be a professor in entrepreneurship, then I think we can speak to the dean was here previously. So we'll talk to you later about that.
Thanks, Sean.
Again, thanks a lot for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate the questions.